So please welcome Peter Deadman.
Yeah, I qualified in 1978, and already then the model of one-to-one time-intensive acupuncture was the predominant one. That's what everybody expected to go into in practice. Why was that? I don't really know why it developed like that. I did a quick check on the internet a couple of days ago, and here are some of the pioneers of acupuncture in Britain. There's Van Buren, Worsley, Royston Lowe. I don't know if you know all or some of these people. Malcolm Stent. And you can see that their background is they were homeopaths, they were osteopaths, and they were naturopaths. All of which disciplines lend themselves to full one-on-one interaction with the patient. And then somewhere, and it would be very interesting if somebody sometime did a bit of background research, it would seem, looking objectively, that of all the models of practice, the one that most resembles the traditional one-to-one is actually psychotherapy. You know, it's very much private medicine. That's the model. So, if you like, the class background of some of these people would be quite interesting. What I'm really saying is that without thinking it through and without being particularly conscious, we inherited or we developed a method of practice in the West, in Britain, which is very time intensive. It usually involves giving a patient, well, in the 5 Element School, up to 1.5 hours of private time. And so that's how I was taught, and that's how I practiced for a couple of years before I first went to China. I've said that, well, this one-to-one model gives rise to what I've called, I'm missing a bit of text there, but talk-heavy, treatment-light approach. So lots of talk, lots of detailed diagnosis, lots of psychological interaction with the patient. In the Chinese clinic, I was struck by, and also with having the great opportunity during the 80s to study with a very famous Chinese doctor from New York, Dr. John Shen. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He practiced for, I think, 30, 40 years in Taiwan. He used to see hundreds of patients a day. And what I realized is considered to be one of the great skills of a Chinese doctor, embodied to some degree by the doctors I studied with in China, but definitely by John Shen, is rapid diagnosis. Rather than a doctor being admired for how long they take in interacting with the patient, they're to some degree admired by how brief it is. Of course, this is not a good model if it's at the expense of genuine interaction and acquiring the information necessary to make a good diagnosis and to develop a treatment. But this speed comes from, first of all, very, very sound knowledge, very deep study, which is, of course, when you study Chinese medicine in China, that's what you're expected to acquire. And extensive clinical experience. Extensive clinical experience means that you've seen hundreds, you've seen thousands, and you've seen tens of thousands of patients. So you develop the ability to see very quickly what's going on for a person, medically speaking, and on other levels as well, you know, who this person is. And I've mentioned also the killer question. Killer question, very famous in Chinese medicine diagnosis. Patient says a few things, you ask a few questions, and the doctor asks the killer question. You know, when you get hot at night, is your sweat oily or is it wet? That's the killer question, because that determines, that's the key question that determines the diagnosis. So speed, speed of analysis and diagnosis and differentiation, very smart, very clever. And then the treatment is treatment-rich. So the acupuncture that I saw in China, by contrast to what I saw in the West, was strong, it's very powerful treatment, very, very effective, and it was given frequently. That was the key thing. People were coming at that time for treatment every day or every other day, and I was astounded by what I saw, by the results on just on a normal daily level were much greater than the results that I'd seen from clinics in Britain up to that time.